my loyal blade and champion of the festival. Both your deeds will ever be praised in song. Now, the vow will be honored, and my lord brother's soul will return, so that he may be my consort.
Hi there everyone, my name is Patrick, and today I want to talk about the new Elden Ring DLC expansion, The Shadow of the Erdtree. But before we start, I just want to give a little backstory into my history with Elden Ring in order to add context to the later portion of the video. Elden Ring was my first ever Souls game. I heard the mention of a game called Dark Souls throughout the years, and I heard that it was a pretty hard game with quite a reputation, but no one ever really sold me on trying it until I saw my friend playing Elden Ring for the first time. Before that, I was on a gaming hiatus for almost 10 years. Just something about watching my friend play the game was instantly captivating to me. I've always been attracted to skill-based things, so I asked him if I could try fighting against one of those giants in Limgrave. And as expected, I was beat down almost instantly. But instead of frustration, I just felt a sense of curiosity. How could I die so quickly? What kind of game is this? All these questions led to, I wonder if I could beat him if I tried this. Or if I tried this. So I kept on trying until I understood the giant's attack patterns. And to my surprise, I got the kill, which felt way more rewarding than I was expecting. And it made me even more curious to see what else could be out there in the lands between. Are there enemies harder than this giant? What other types of scenery could be lurking around each corner? I had to try it for myself, so I embarked on my first ever playthrough, which was swiftly met by hitting an impassable brick wall. I previously managed to get through the first boss encounters of the game, Margit the Fell Omen and Godric the Grafted, along with the help of the summon signs that were provided at their entrances, as I just couldn't imagine being able to beat them on my own. The movesets were just far too aggressive, far too difficult to comprehend. I really just couldn't imagine it. But once I got to the Red Wolf of Radahn, I was determined to try to get the win on my own, which led to the rather anticlimactic end result of abruptly stopping my playthrough from sheer frustration after an amount of deaths that I could no longer even count. I thought that maybe these games just weren't for me. Maybe I just didn't have the reflexes or the pattern recognition skills to be able to beat these bosses by myself. I just wasn't absorbing the information in front of me. Swing after swing, attack after attack, weird, swirly, delayed axe swing attacks, along with a few self-dismemberment moments just sprinkled here and there. And I just kept making the same mistakes. Over and over and over. Death after death. I just felt incapable. And that's a pretty frustrating feeling. Should video games make me feel this frustrated? I just didn't know. So I threw in the towel and accepted defeat. I walked away from Elden Ring, until a few days later, the craving to go back to the lands between just kept gnawing at me for some reason, and I just couldn't ignore it. So, I decided to give it a try again. But this time around, thanks to some convincing from my friend, we decided that we would try to do a co-op playthrough together. And I wanted to experiment with the different builds that the game had to offer. So in the end, I settled on a mage build. And damn, we had a good time. We ended up talking about Elden Ring together all day. When I was at work, we would send voice notes to each other about new weapons or new spells that we heard about and wanted to try and find. It's fair to say, we were pretty obsessed. The joint experience together was one that I will never forget. The teamwork and the joint strategy was incredibly satisfying. And as we progressed through the world, I continued to get progressively more and more blown away with every new boss encounter, every new area to explore, every new spell or staff I would find for my mage build, every new NPC or cryptic bit of lore to try to decipher and add my own spin to use as metaphors for my own life. It was truly a magical experience. After we completed our first playthrough together, my curiosity for these games had only deepened, and I wanted to try and understand the Souls language and the Souls universe even further. So that led me to playing Elden Ring 3 more times, scattered through the next 2 years, and in between that period was also my first completely solo experience of Dark Souls 3, of Bloodborne, and of Dark Souls 1, including all of their DLCs. Dark Souls 3 is without a doubt my favourite Souls game. Actually, scrap that. It's my favourite game of all time. It hits all the right marks for me personally. The atmosphere, the level design, the quest lines, the NPCs. It just hits home for me. And it perfectly embodies how I see the real world in my own life. The strange, unsettling, yet somehow comforting sense of loneliness and isolation. The degradation and decay of everything around you. Trying to hold on to its former glory. Trying to hold on to a memory. And all the while losing itself along the way. The whole thing just became incredibly nostalgic for me. I would spend a lot of time just hanging out in the Firelink Shrine, speaking to NPCs over and over, trying to analyze and understand all their bits of dialogue, just walking around and just soaking in the entire atmosphere.
Oh, are you lost on your journey? No matter. Today's lost are conquerors tomorrow. It only demonstrates the makings of a champion. And besides, whatever your choice, it will not change my sense of gratitude or how I think of you. Do stay safe.
And as you can tell, I could easily start going on a massive tangent about Dark Souls 3 because it's got a massive array of opportunity for deep dive areas of discussion. But yeah, I'm not going to do that in this video. That's not why we're here today. Today, we're here to talk about Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree. So without any further delays, let's get into it. Now, there are many different areas of discussion that we can jump into when it comes to Shadow of the Erdtree. From the weapons, to the level design, to the environmental storytelling, to the lore, to the scenery. There are many areas that we could talk about, but for today, I just want to focus on the most controversial topic about the Shadow of the Erdtree, which is the level of difficulty and the enemy combat design. And when it comes to this particular topic, it has really polarized the Souls community. The wide range of opinions and reactions, the different perspectives and the different forms of analysis have just been huge. And I would like to talk about my perspective on it. I like to talk about my perspective on this particular topic. I like to talk about my experience with it. And really, I just like to start a discussion about whether we can truly say that this DLC has a poor design behind its combat, or if it's something else entirely. There are quite a few things to keep in mind when looking at the collective and subjective pros and cons of this expansion. And while there are plenty of cons, some more detrimental than others, I strongly believe that the core of the direction that has been accomplished with this DLC is in fact a sign of development, and a sign that From Software is doubling down on the core philosophy that made the Souls franchise so beloved to begin with. And let's face it, the initial goal of making Elden Ring more accessible to newcomers to this franchise has opened up the door to many of the complaints that Shadow of the Erdtree has received. Their intention was to try something new, with much more variety and avenues to take to traverse the lands between. Not one playthrough will be the same for anyone, but since Elden Ring's release back in 2022, it's pretty clear to see that the endless amount of ways that players have found to break and trivialize the game would have been impossible to predict, simply due to the immense scale and complexity of the game. And that has become a bit of a problem for the developers and for the players. It without a doubt clashes with the original principles of these games. And the biggest of these principles that has been clear to us from the inception of this genre is overcoming adversity. But if there is no longer any real adversity for many players due to the insanely broken builds and the incredibly over-leveled stats that people have found loopholes to exploit, where does the sense of accomplishment from overcoming an immense challenge come from? So let's dive a little bit deeper into what maintaining a sense of accomplishment for players involves. And if we, the audience, has noticed the decline of satisfaction from overcoming Elden Ring challenges in comparison to the earlier games, then the team at From Software has undoubtedly noticed it as well. Now, subjectively speaking, all of my fondest memories from these games have always been against bosses and areas that during the experience felt like I was beating my head against a wall and doubting my ability to the point that I wasn't even sure if I would ever be able to overcome it. So in Dark Souls 3, for example, there were many of those experiences for me. The Twin Princes, the Nameless King, the Soul of Cinder, swamp areas and dungeons. All of these experiences, I struggled. Some of those encounters took me over 100 attempts to surpass. I even felt miserable during some of those experiences.
Yeah, that's
So annoying. There you go.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Oh, man. I just wanted some victory, man. I just need one scrap of success in my life. Seriously, just one little bit, man.
Oh, come on,
Just
bro.
failure, just... Was it anger towards the game? Was it anger towards myself? A bit of both at different moments, I guess. What the fuck? I don't understand. When do I have time to hit this guy? I don't actually know. I don't understand.
I know, it's tough. Fuck you, man. Chill. So maybe we remove that.
Why?
It's just a little bit unstable.
Lost control of the trolley. But upon overcoming them, I always felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. And that right there is the beauty of Souls games. Overcoming a challenging boss encounter has always felt like a personal investment, and in order to combat the endless combinations of weapons, spells, talismans and great shields, armor sets and buffs that people stack upon each other, they needed to find a way to bring back some of the heat that has been lost from Elden Ring. They needed to find a way to bring back the learning curve. Now, for such an intricate and packed to the brim game like Elden Ring that is literally overflowing at the seams with stuff and things to do, What they have provided us with in Shadow of the Erdtree is a pretty amazing attempt at bringing back that struggle and overwhelming mountain to climb. Sure, it's not perfect, but nothing as huge as Elden Ring will ever be completely free from issues. But I don't think that people realize the drastic measures that were needed in order to bring down the effectiveness of some of the tools that we, the players, have been leaning on since Elden Ring's release. And also don't forget that as players become better and more used to and more accustomed to using the mechanics in these games, at dodging, at parrying, at pattern recognition, at noticing and punishing openings more proficiently, the difficulty also needs to come up along with it. Some may even say they have gone too far this time. Many players in Elden Ring that have just been running around with extremely heavy weapons and destroying everything in front of them for the last 2 years, or melting everything away with overpowered spells and buffs, or bleeding and frosting everything to death within seconds. They needed to find a way to give all of those players a challenge that they would remember. A challenge that forces us to re-engage with the game's core principle: overcoming adversity. Lots of players have without a doubt developed many habits that they are no longer really able to lean on in Shadow of the Erdtree. They are no longer as viable. So what does that mean that we have to do in response to this doubling down on their core principle? It means we need to drop our prior strategies and find some new ones. There are plenty of ways that the boss encounters in Shadow of the Erdtree are different from those in the base game. They're faster, they're more aggressive, they're more relentless, and they're more robust. But from my perspective, all of those boss encounters are fair and incredibly well designed, with more thought and dedication to the core principle behind those designs. How would they even attempt to go about bringing back some of the challenge that has been lost? How would they give the encounters the reputations that they deserve, lore-wise and mechanics-wise? Now, from what I can tell and from what I've heard from others, some examples of ways that they have tried to combat these issues are with things such as raising enemy poise meters so that their stance is harder to break. And another way that they have most definitely implemented in Shadow of the Erdtree when it comes to difficulty that is beyond everybody's doubt is longer combos and less punish windows. This decision alone single-handedly rebalances many of the methods of combat that many players have been leaning on. Being able to get less attacks in their openings means status build-ups such as bleed, frost, poison and rot take way longer to build. So you have to actually survive through more of their combos in order to try to keep building your status effects. It also helps to further minimize being able to break enemy stance meters more rapidly. And then a great thing happens. It brings back the necessity to actually learn the enemy's moveset, to master it, and to learn their attack windows with observation and vigilance. An important point to emphasize here though is that all builds are still viable, but how you use them is the thing that needs to change. And that is what these new challenges will force you to figure out. And one last point to mention before moving on to the final hot topic of discussion at the end of this video is that enemy attack patterns have changed. You can no longer just jump attack some of these bosses from the front anymore. You're going to be punished for it. You'll need to play more strategically. You'll need a plan. And at first glance, some of these bosses have become a bit unfair or not very well designed. So what better example to talk about here than Shadow of the Erdtree's final boss, promised consort Radahn. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, I'm back for the second time, bro. Hey, I don't think you're ready for what happens next, G. My moveset is fucking bonkers, bro. Hey, you better ready yourself, innit? Dickhead.
Now this is a really interesting topic. Consort Radahn is single-handedly the boss that has caused the most controversy in Elden Ring, and perhaps even in the history of all Souls games, and perhaps even in the history of all bosses in video games. Now don't get me wrong, I understand the criticism he receives. I fought him more than 400 times before I beat him, and during that time, I was just as convinced that he is a terrible boss with a flawed design as many other people are. But upon beating him, I understood the purpose of the fight. I won't go into detail about the experience that I had with all of his moves. I'll save that for another video. But for now, I will just talk about the principles and ideas behind this fight. Consort Radahn is a fight that, put simply, you need to master. Otherwise you just won't win. It's a fight that you need to have ingrained into your muscle memory. An interesting way of thinking about it is that most bosses have a percentage ratio of mastery versus luck. So let's say that you need to learn how to consistently avoid most Elden Ring boss attacks by 50 to 60% before you get the win. But with Radahn, however, you need to master and memorize his attack patterns probably around the 80 to 90% area before defeating him. Simply because messing up a single moment of your dodging and evasions can most of the time almost instantly result in death. The most common way I died during this fight was getting hit by just one of his swipes during the famous double swipe cross attack thing, getting pushed back into the golden light beams shooting out of the ground, which chipped away at my health even further, then not understanding what combo he started next due to the golden light distracting me. Dead. Over and over and over. And from watching videos of other people fighting him, I know I'm not the only one. I had many moments when I was standing in front of his fog door, just pondering in complete confusion about how I would ever kill this guy.
I can't see anything. He's being relentless. I've got no time to attack. Do I even have the time to heal?
All those questions, we all had them. I had to respec my character and change my weapon 3 times during my 400 plus attempts. But that experience to me is exactly what made the fight memorable.
I promise you, 1,000-year voyage guided by compassion.
Needing to take a step back for a moment and analyze your current approach, placing everything you know about this fight on the table, and coming up with a solution that could work. And I had to be precise about it. I had to experiment with weapons and their movesets, analyzing the time a light and heavy attack and a charged heavy attack would take with each weapon, and how many attacks I could get in at which point in the fight.
I'm sure you all agree that my plans are good.
It was like a maths equation, and some people might not find that fun. Some people might consider the need for that approach to be poor design, but I definitely don't feel that way. I had to actually turn my brain on and really apply myself. I had to make a plan, and I've never had to do that for a boss before. And that's why I think that Consort Radahn is so great.
Why Carpilot is great?
He's a project. He's a personal project. And not just a boss that you can try a couple of times and call it a day. That's definitely not going to happen. Unless you're really annoying. So I'll use a single example of one of his moves that will accurately explain why I think this fight is well designed. Many players say that his cross swipe double triple attack is undodgeable consistently. And maybe they're right, but the main question that we need to deconstruct here is, does that make it a poor design? What people seem to forget is that From Software create obstacles during fights for us to find our own ways of surviving. Now that's the key word here. Not for 100% avoidance, not for 100% hitless runs. That is a metric of judgment that we have created. But we can't assume that the devs at From Software design fights by our rules. As long as we survive the fight, it's a win from their perspective, right? This undodgeable attack is the sole reason why I learnt how to master his moves. As soon as I allowed myself to become bewildered by getting hit by that attack, I would lose my balance and awareness of what the hell this guy was doing, and then I would die. So much so that even when I did get hit by that attack, I gradually, slowly but surely, learnt how to recover from it quickly. And that's another keyword here. Perhaps you finding a way to recover was a priority for them in their design over you 100% avoiding each and every one of his attacks. So once I learnt how to recover from it quickly, I would reinsert myself into the fight without getting hit by a single attack from his following combo. That attack is definitely a curveball, a spanner thrown into the works, but it definitely helped me understand the second phase is essentially the first phase. And the only way that I was going to survive it was to get so familiar with his attacks in his first phase that I don't need to just rely on what I could see in the second phase. I could feel what I needed to do. My muscle memory would take over and guide me through his combos like water, blinding white light or not. And that, to me, is incredible boss design. It requires you to be able to avoid every one of his attacks, to consistently avoid them, except our favorite curveball. Right! We need to learn the first phase so well that it almost becomes second nature. And for that reason alone, Promised Consort Radahn is probably my personal favorite curveball. I mean, my personal favorite boss of all time. Hello. I hope you all enjoyed the video. This video's been in the works for just under 2 weeks now, and as you all know, the Consort Radahn fight has been nerfed, so some of the points that I was making in the last section of the video are no longer entirely relevant anymore, but I think the point still stands. This is probably not where the controversial boss releases are going to end. We're probably going to get some bosses that people are going to complain about in the future and going to consider poorly designed. But yeah, I think the main point that I'm trying to emphasize here is that if the difficulty spike does continue to later games and to later bosses, I just think that we should just try to learn to enjoy it, and try to learn to enjoy the challenge and experiment with new ways of approaching things, rather than be incredibly unhappy with them and basically demand that they're changed. Because yeah, I mean, me and a lot of other people are definitely enjoying the new direction that From Software has started to take things in. And I've heard quite a lot of people talking about how the fight is poorly designed and the difficulty and like the unreasonableness of the fight has gone too far. When a lot of those people that are saying those things start to say that after the 50 death area, which is definitely not very high in numbers in comparison to a lot of people that enjoyed the fight. So I just think that a mindset shift is in order. Change it! Switch it! Pop it! Squeeze it! Yeah, just basically whatever you need to do to change it, really. Get good! Get good! Get good! I feel like I need to put bleeps on get good now. Get good! Nah, but really, it's all love, guys. I mean, I understand people's opinions. I do understand them. But yeah, I also would like everybody to enjoy the games as much as possible and enjoy it to a similar degree that I enjoyed it. You know, I know that not everything's for everyone, but I just hope that we don't lose people along the way. That's my main wish for this video. So be happy and enjoy. I don't want to hear any more crying out of any of you, or I send you to bed with no supper. From Software is daddy and From Software is mummy. Okay, yeah, this is going too far now. I need to stop doing this. And I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Rich from the Elden Ring Facebook group for giving me all of his Twitch pre-nerf radahn footage, since I could no longer get any of my own. Because, you know, the nerf. So please like the video and subscribe, and just drop a comment below about what you thought about the video and what you think about this whole topic in general. I definitely like to hear if there are some people that are in agreement and or some people that are not. And yeah, like, I'd also be interested to know if I managed to convince anybody of this perspective. I hope you all have a good week, and I will see you in the next video. I've been practicing. What do you think of my whistles?